The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily represent those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting group. Get involved with Access Fort Wayne and make your own television programming. Call 421-1250 to find out more.
Welcome to the Blue Bunny Army Show. I hope you all will enjoy it. Have a good day.
I'm super shy, but wait a minute while I make you mine, 달리는 지금도 you're on my mind all the time. I wanna tell you, but I'm super shy. I'm super shy, but wait a minute while I make you mine, 달리는 지금도 you're on my mind all the time. I wanna tell you, but I'm super shy.
Good day and enjoy the show.
Weather, no winter, and the hairy vetch was, when I planted it the hairy vetch this month. And I rolled or crimped that down. I'll talk about that when we go back there. But it rained too much, I believe, and my roller crimping, it takes, when you crimp that, it'll die, but it takes some drying time. We haven't had drying time this spring. It's been wet. Same way I've had cereal rye, and I've heard the annual ryegrass cover crops did not die because of all the rain and cool weather. You know, they wanted to grow. So I had to put herbicide on. There's been years I haven't had to apply anything. I'm not sure this one is. It's a 2,4-D mixture. It has glyphosate in it. I don't know what he put in. I didn't ask them. I ordered that the other day, and they come out and look at it, and I trust the guys. They know what I'm doing.
Right. What's the purpose of that vetch stuff?
The vetch?
Yeah, I must have missed that.
So, why do I plant cover crops? Why do we cover? Number one, I want something on my ground as long as I can. A cover,
So it doesn't-
a green mat, okay?
Yeah.
And I tailor it to whatever crop I'm planting. Hairy vetch is it's a legume, so it fixes nitrogen. It takes nitrogen out of the air, fixes it in the soil. It's the number one nitrogen fixer we can get. So when I have that growing like that, I'm told that there could be 150, 200 pounds of nitrogen that I grew there, that I fixed in that soil. Normally the cereal rye is better. The cereal rye will outgrow the hairy vetch, but this year it didn't.
And that's the center one?
Yeah, that was what did you have? That looked more like a barley. Barley.
No, that was not the garden. I believe it was, well, it might have been that section of the barley.
This is
yeah.
crimson. Clover. Looks like mostly crimson clover.
It's all crimson clover.
Yeah. It's hard to tell. Crimson clover is another legume that I put in my mix. It grows short normally with a lot of branches on it, brackets. So it's not hard to kill. It doesn't have the big stem. Fixes great nitrogen. Austrian winter peas I put out in my mix. They're a great cereal also. They'll fix that.
And then you can, then the next season, or whatever amount of seasons, then you actually plant something there.
I'll put a different mix in.
But not vegetables? Or
planting into your cover crop.
Plant into it. Well, I'm always planting corn, soybeans, wheat, or oats
always?
in my fields.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on a 3-year rotation.
The rotation, that's what I was saying.
So I'm not planting vegetables in mine, but it works the same way. Nitrogen, you don't need on your tomatoes, you know. So you wouldn't plant tomatoes in a heavy legume.
So our Bloomingdale Gardens project, where these soils came from, that's open to the public. It's right off of Wells Street. It's Wells and High Street, and all of these soils are from there. So what we have done there, this ground that we had cereal rye in, it was just kind of conventionally tilled. Last year was our first year putting a cover crop on, a successful cover crop. We tried the year before, but we were way too late. So we put our cereal rye on, and then we tarped over the cereal rye. And this year we planted in, there's popcorn, sweet corn, and a couple rows of tomatoes and some peppers in there. So that cereal rye that's on there, it's under here. You can kind of see some of the stubble in here. We did put some compost on top of there that we are making ourselves. We have a big compost in there. So all of our plant scraps, all of the uneaten vegetables, any of our household waste is going into that compost. When that's finished off, and we actually fertilize that compost to add those nutrients back into the soil. So this year's kind of a test on how that cereal rye works to mitigate some of the weeds as well, because it's providing like that natural barrier. We did not till it, so we didn't stir up that seed bed that's in there. When you till your soil as a gardener, you're going to stir up all of those seeds that are like down in the ground. They're going to pop right back up, and you're going to fight those all year. So planting that cover crop in your garden can help mitigate that issue as well. So this crimson clover that we had, we planted strawberries into the crimson clover. We just left all of that matter on that garden box. This is actually an elevated box. It's ADA compliant, so it's right at, if you were in an accessory device, you would be able to like reach in and, you know, grab the strawberries, pull the weeds, etc. So the strawberries are actually thriving in there this year. They're loving that environment. They're just kind of taken over the top. And then where we have this hairy veg, we have not planted into the mesh. We use that as an illustration, just to show people what these cover crops are going to look like in your garden. Some of these cover crops are winter kill, meaning when you put them in the fall, they grow up, they get a good stand on them, they do their job over the winter, they provide all of those nutrients to the microorganisms living in the soil, and they also hold that soil structure together, and they will die off when they're up. There are some other cover crops like the cereal rye or annual rye that you actually have to terminate in the spring, or they're just going to keep growing. So they've done their job all winter, we tarp them off. There's different methods of terminating. Your termination methods?
Yeah, so I'm roller. I roller crimping. It's sitting right over there with them bars on it. It's a roller. Cereal rye, any cereal plant that joints, oats, barley, on and on, if you bend that, will die. You crimp that stem, that stalk. So you can do the same thing easily in a garden. I've seen the easiest, simplest way is to take a board and, you know, a little 4-inch board or 6-inch board, put a 2x2 on the bottom of it or 1x1 in the middle, and 2 ropes on it, and walk along and stomp it down. You're crimping the same thing I am. There's push crimpers, you know, the rollers like that you can do. There's a lot of different ways to do that. You can drive your garden tractor over it.
I hooked up a beam that I drilled a couple holes through, put some chain through to the back of my Simplicity lawnmower, and I use that.
Yeah.
It works wonderfully.
So Mike, can you talk just a minute about like those 4 principles of soil health and why these practices achieve those 4 ways of like not disturbing, right?
Right. So I am, number one, I'm trying to keep cover on my ground 100% of the time. Now, the fields that I roll that down with, that's covered over, and once my plants grow through that, it'll decay. I don't want to do tillage. I don't want to till my soil. I'm just going in there and planting it. No-till works on gardening also. You can do it. It takes a change of attitude to do that. You have to learn how to plant into that.
And that's what we just saw the Burmese farm, well, the Rose Avenue Gardens, and you know, Jane mentioned, you know, they all come to the meetings and they all understand the practices and then it's all tilled.
Yeah, right.
So we saw that in person, yeah.
But that's interesting. You know, they have a long history
Yes.
of them vegetables
Yep.
and the crops they're growing there, which are really interesting. And that's their method.
Yep.
They do it.
And then your cover crops, some of them are radishes.
Yep.
So you-
And I plant radishes.
And that's putting
radishes
down
are
the
another
roots.
winter kill plant. So we plant them in August, and they will get big. And out here in my fields, I'll get a 4 and 5 foot root on them. You know, so and if they're like a tree root, they'll open up the soil. But they're not hard like a tree root. They'll die, and they'll get winter killed. They dry pretty easy on frost, the first frost. But they bore down and they sequester. They hold on to nutrients in that big root. So once they die, I want something else following that, like the cereal rye that's going to winter all winter, to take up them nutrients and hold them for the next year.
So the turnips just die in the soil,
Yeah,
everybody just stay where you are, and then plant.
plant in, yeah. That's turnips or radishes, same brassica family.
And then-
You go.
Well, Don Reckaway, if everybody knows Don, he's on the board of supervisors for the Soil and Water Conservation District in the other county, the county just north of you, Mike.
Allen County.
And Don was showing us pictures on the bus about, and where was that? It was out by Woodburn. And there was tell us there was a rain, and on one side of the road was,
Cover crop and no-till. The other side is conventional. All the little puddles over here is the lake on this side.
yeah.
Heavy rain.
So again, all that sediment that would wash off, and we were just talking about how the water in the Maumee the ditch turned white, right, with all the sediment. And so that's what they're working to stop. Keep all that soil, keep that integrity.
And that individual now is doing no-till and started cover crops this year.
He lost too much.
So when we talk soil health again, a soil that's aerated, that has a lot of channels, root channels, earthworms in it, a lot of bacteria biology working, is less dense. It has a bulk density less than one that's compacted. You know, what you're walking on here is compacted. And we want that here because we want to drive on it. In a field, that's a bad thing. The lower your bulk density, the more, as Barry Fisher and Hans Kuhn used to always say, you want your soil to be just like your house. You want half something, walls, roof, in there, and you want half of the air, oxygen, open space, water. So half and half. That's if you get your soil, and that's what sand does. Sand is a granular product, granular structure, and it doesn't bind itself together like our clay. Our clay particles. So they say on yellow clay, you can take a tablespoon of yellow clay, and if you could divide them out into their individual platelets, their little platelets, little saucers, the clay particles. If you could spread them out so they just touched each other, it'd be like a putting green on a golf course. A tablespoon of clay. There's so many platelets in there. But when you smash them together, you get hard soil. You get hard. So the more we can get our bulk density, the more we can lower that, the more we can get our water to infiltrate through there to get the roots deeper, the whole works. You can save that water. That's what we're doing here. The bulk density on this one would be very tight in steel. Cover and storage. The bulk density on that one has progressing longer a lot.
This one has cereal.
It has cereal on it, but it also has, I can see a lot of lawn clippings there.
You okay, Marion?
Yeah.
Bark.
So we have a little bit of leaf moss on there,
You okay,
but we
Millie?
used our compost from it. So you'll see some eggshells in there. And that compost wasn't completely finished. We only had that compost going for 2 years, and so we go through it pretty quick, but we're always trying to add to it and grow that compost.
Close.
There's also some leaf mulch on there that we put on to
I think she
cover
needs to
those
sit.
weeds.
I think she needs to sit.
I'm composting all my fields, and I roll that down, and the plant grows through that, it has to decay. Earthworms, when I go out and take a shovel full of dirt, and if I don't have 10, 12 earthworms in my shovel, it's because it's too hot, or too cold, too wet, too, well, not if you have a lot of earthworms, it's not going to be hard. But I don't, my organic matter, my average organic matter on my soil now is in almost 4%, 3.8% average over everything. That's sampling my high spots, which are the yellow clays, and the low spots, the darker soils, which are more loam soil. And if we go into our woods right here, this is all woodland when it was settled. You take a soil sample out of the woodland, you're getting 1.7 to 1.8% organic matter in the woods. Trees put all their organic matter in their trunk. And the leaves are there, but the leaves are, they drop leaves, but the leaves don't contribute much to organic matter. So I've increased my organic matter by, I have some samples now that are in the 6%.
And this is where the left and the right come together, right? Because the carbon dioxide that's in the air is the only carbon that goes into a plant. The plant is not absorbing carbon from the earth. It's all coming from the atmosphere, photosynthesis into the leaves, and then stored. And what's beautiful about the hairy veg just cracks me up because it's just pulling all of that from the atmosphere and storing it, putting it back into the ground. So that's just phenomenal. That's our carbon footprint that we're trying as, to reduce, to bring more carbon back into the earth, because that's one of our biggest stores.
Yeah, to increase your organic matter, you either have to put compost on,
Yep.
or roots have to make it.
Yep.
You have to have the plant make that in the roots.
Yep. Yep. And Don just said no till, because once you till, it all gets released back into the atmosphere. Yep. Yep.
Okay, you're also
Just like
breaking
sort
down.
of like burning.
Right, you're burning it off.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. We'll take it away.
Spectacular.
So here's some terms from growers and producers, and what they talk about planting green and interseeding, and that's what Mike's doing around here, and all of that is reducing our carbon footprint. So Mike's not removing any of this matter. He's not tilling that soil. He's going into that cereal rye, putting his whatever you're putting in on these fields.
Corn, now it's
Corn?
soybeans.
Soybeans.
I have all my soybeans in that had cover crop on. These fields here were supposed to be oats this year, and that field actually was planted into oats on Good Friday. It was too wet when I did it, but oats like wet feed, but it was way too wet. When oats can't survive a springtime, we have a wet spring. So my other 80 acres besides that I'm planting beans today or today and tomorrow is going into what should have been oats ground. It should have been my rotation. It's just Mother Nature. Every year is different. Every year, CCSI.
Conservation.
The director.
Lois Mann.
Lois Mann's our rep for here.
Holster.
Yeah,
Lisa Holster.
Lois is who I deal with, yeah.
Yeah, Lisa Holster is the director of that, and that's what she says too. It's just amazing.
So as a soil and water district, we're promoting conservation on the ground, and we work with different agencies. We're under the USDA umbrella, so we work with the Natural Resources Conservation Service, and we work with the Farm Service Agency. We work with other organizations like the Nature Conservancy, Conservation Cropping Systems Initiative, and so we're kind of the boots on the ground. We are going out and we're talking to these producers, we're talking to their farmers. We're helping them understand all of the options available to them, all the programs. There are a lot of government payments available to try these conservation practices. So we act as a soil and water conservation district kind of as that first point of contact. And so Mike's time with us, he was the one who was going out working with all of our producers saying, hey, here are my success stories. And through that, Mike partnered with the Nature Conservancy to be a farmer advocate. So part of that program is they have these farmers who have been long-term cover cropping, practicing conservation, meeting with their peers, sharing their successes, sharing their struggles through all of this process. And through that learning, we've been able to put more conservation on the ground. We have more producers coming to us saying, "Oh, I never do that. I never do that." Well, 5 years later, we see them putting, some cereal rye in, or we're going to try some clover this year. So it's a really good program, and it's because of people like Mike and that take these chances and who stick with it through the hard times that we're really seeing conservation growing in our state.
When I started in the late 80s, starting no-tilling, because I saw erosion happening, and I wanted to stop that erosion. That hurt me. It hurts me to see it now yet, today, when we can fix that. But there was no rule book. We didn't know how to do it, how to handle it. It was me, and I had a group of guys, probably 8, 10 guys, and we talked with conservation that were saying like that. Now, that farmer's farmer advocate is teaching farmers to talk to their neighbors. They don't really have to branch out. They just want to talk to their neighbors. Same way with the gardeners. Gardeners talk to the gardeners, and that's the way to make a change.
Does it cost you more money or less money?
Well, what do you think?
It's probably going to cost you a little more because you buy seed and everything.
Seed price? Well, okay, I'm buying the cover crop
Still
seed.
got to drive the
Yeah,
tractor.
I'm buying the cover crop seed. But I'm putting a lot less nitrogen on. I'm buying less nitrogen, less inputs than if I wasn't doing the cover crop. They are fixing a lot of nitrogen. The deep root plants like the turnips and radishes go so deep in the soil that we're loaded with potash. Am I right on that one? Phosphorus. We're loaded with phosphorus in our soil, the clay soils. It's not available. It takes a root and nature to make that available. So I'm getting returns back. I'm putting very little extra phosphorus on anymore. I'm putting nitrogen on at rates that people tell me all the time I can't grow corn. I can't grow corn.
And so there's less outpay, and then what are your yields like?
Yeah, my yield. Well, see, yields. I can grow 100 or 250 bushel corn because I'm putting more nitrogen on. I did 5 years of studies and replicated trials on nitrogen in it, and said the most bushels are not the most profit per acre. Sometimes I go for my highest profit per acre. For me, that's 180 bushels return to corn. Over that, I get more bushels back, but I cost more to get that bushel. Cost more machinery, on and on. So that's a hard step for farmers to accept. The first liar in the coffee shop loses because the next one always comes along and has a higher yield.
The other thing is it burns a lot of diesel all that dry.
Fuel, yeah. I'm growing my crops on about a gallon an acre of fuel. That's not counting the harvesting. Everybody's harvesting the same. Planting and rolling is about a gallon an acre is what I put on. There's guys using that just for doubling that on their first tillage.
If you look back to when we were talking about the carbon back in the soil, keeping the soil covered and one thing or another, if you read anything in the news, there's 2 words that you may recognize, and that's regenerative agriculture and sustainable agriculture. And that's really what this is.
I'm a regenerative agriculture because I'm building my soil. There's no question. No-till does it, helps the soil, but it will not build soil because you're not adding anything to it. You got to put them cover crops on there with it. Same way with the gardening. And you have to put something back in there to rebuild your soil. We talked about cereal rye, having a good cover, letting the rain hit it, and so forth. Shading weeds, it has an allelopathic effect to it. It releases a substance in its roots that restricts or hinders other seeds from germinating. So when I have a really good cereal rye crop, I have no weeds in that field, and that's how I've gone through the years without herbicide, without buying herbicide. The cereal rye didn't survive the winter very well, and the hairy veg took over, took its place this year, so now I'm spraying, but I got so much nitrogen, so much biomass out there. It's all good. I can't control anything. I can only do what I have to follow up with. I'm not in charge of anything. It's just how I react. And I'm reacting this year to the hairy veg being so heavy. I've never had that before. One thing about hairy veg is you don't want that to go to seed. That has a hardened seed in it. There's some weeds, some grasses, foxtail, giant foxtail has a hardened seed, and a few other ones. That if you let that go to seed, you can beat it with your land because that could be a 40-year lifespan. So.
I can attest to that in a home garden area. A few years back, I thought, oh, this veg, it's so pretty. It has purple flowers, it's lovely. I had kind of. So what this is here, this is a rainfall simulator. And we have different cans of different soils and conservation practices. So down here on the end, this came from our community garden at 420 High Street, Bloomingdale Garden. And that is we had a cover crop on, I believe we had cereal rye? We had cereal rye on last year. We planted as a cover crop. We terminated it this spring. There has been some compost added to that. That's just a ground plot, something that we're working with. Our second demonstration here is your average lawn soil. This might be a little bit above average because they take really good care of their lawn. The second instance, that third instance here are some cover crops in a garden box. And these cover crops have kind of terminated themselves and we've planted into that. So there's some strawberries growing in there. The fourth one is a living cover crop. We have some, looks like hairy vetch here. And then this last one here is just your bare soil. So this is no conservation practices, nothing rooted in that soil, nothing to hold that soil together. This is just you till your soil, put your seeds in and plant it. So there'll be a couple of different you can see some runoff here. And the far one, I don't think it's not enough. That should be the worst one, but it's not deep enough to truly show. But this is very similar.
And everyone, this is Courtney Taylor, an amazing long-term conservationist and a watershed project manager at the Allen County Soil and Water Conservation District. So thanks for coming out today, Courtney.
Mike, do you want me to talk about runoff and infiltration, or do you want to? You know way more about it than I do. Well, you can see, so these buckets that we pulled from the bottom kind of show the infiltration. And infiltration is how much water is going through the soil and into the soil, and how is that soil holding that water? Is there a lot of loss? Is it breaking up? The buckets on the front are illustrating the runoff. So that's what's coming off. So this sediment here normally would be running off into our ditches and into our streams, ultimately our rivers, and for a lot of us in Allen County into the western Lake Erie Basin. You can see some of the differences here. This lawn that has been well cared for, covered, and taken care of has very little
I'm eating stars tonight, so watch me bring the fire, set the night alight. Shining through the city with that little fucking soul. So light it up like dynamite. This is stars tonight, so watch me bring the
up in the stars tonight. So watch me bring the fire, set the night light.
Please subscribe to my YouTube, Blue Bonnie Army.
Get up in the morning, cup of milk, let's rock and roll. King Kong, kick the drum, rolling on like a rolling stone.